President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what anyway, just take a look at what he says here.
Folks, I cannot believe that just happened. Like, genuinely, I cannot believe that what we witnessed from Joe Biden at last night's CNN presidential debate, where he could not speak, he could not articulate a thought, and his handlers seriously let him come on the stage sounding like that, is real life. Like, that really just happened. This is not AI. You are not dreaming. No, what we saw from Joe Biden last night is indeed real. And genuinely, I was thinking I was going to come in today doing a substantive recap of the debate. You know, who won this segment? What do we think about this part? There's none of that to be had. There is one story and there's one takeaway from last night alone, and it is the unmitigated historical disaster that was Joe Biden. And let me not exaggerate. This is not hyperbole when I say this. That was the single worst debate performance in US presidential history from anyone, okay? And we're going to talk about it and recap it and show you why that is here today. So if you did not watch the debate or you want a refresher, this is your video. But first, before we get into that, if you would like to support the content, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. But with that said, okay, let's just get into this because I think it's more explanatory if I just play the video and let it speak for itself than if I try to explain this to you. So Joe Biden immediately comes in to last night's debate. He's kind of hobbling on the stage and I was kind of laughing. I was like, oh, Joe's getting so old. And then Joe Biden opens his mouth. And I kid you not, in that very moment, the first 30 seconds of this debate, I already knew that we won because Joe Biden had no voice and he was just very unintelligible. Take a listen to what I'm talking about. This is the opening moment that Joe Biden starts speaking.
Where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24% or 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care.
Okay, so I think you already get the idea. Biden came out and the guy had lost his voice. Now, that said, everyone loses their voice. You get sick, maybe you talk too much, happens to the best of us. But here's the thing, is that Biden already has so many concerns about his age and his health, okay? And so the moment he came out, you know, I was really expecting him to come out the Adderall Biden, allegedly. You know, conservatives have this joke where, and it's true, by the way, whenever it's a major debate or major speech, he comes out with so much energy and he's clearly on something. I'm sure they tried this time around. It just simply didn't work because Biden had lost his voice. Now, what was wrong with Joe Biden? Well, here's my theory. And this is why all the preparation they tried to do for the debate actually backfired, is that, you remember on last Thursday, they sent him away to Camp David for an entire 7 days. They said they were going to do a debate prep camp. You know, they're going to do this Rocky IV training montage where he's getting ready and Trump's not ready. But the issue is, in my opinion, I think it's very obvious what happened here. The Biden team tried to say that he had a cold or something, and they said that an hour into the debate when it was already a disaster. That's not what happened. Realistically, what it was is that they spent so long trying to make sure Biden, hey, do you remember the lines? Remember the script? Say it again, that he literally lost his voice. So that was obviously a genius move on Biden's team. But it's not just about the fact that Biden didn't have his voice. Like I said, that truly does happen to the best of us. It's about the fact that when you combine it with Biden's stutter and the fact that he's already old and, you know, there's all these concerns about how old he is, he simply could not articulate a thought. And here is some of that where Donald Trump himself points it out. And let's just take a listen and ask yourself, can you understand a single thing that Joe Biden is saying in this? Okay, let's check it out. And keep in mind, folks, this is pretty early into the debate, and this is what we see from Joe Biden.
Where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24% or 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
What was that? I mean, what was Joe Biden even talking about there? You notice, again, so it's not just about the fact he didn't have his voice, although I would argue that does matter because, again, you got to consider the context here. Joe Biden's already trailing in the polls. This was the moment where he needs to prove to America that, hey, I can actually lead. You come out sounding like that. But on top of that, notice how he can't keep his thoughts together. He's talking about something, and then he loses his train of thought, looks down, he's stuttering, and then he says something about Medicare. What is Joe Biden even talking about here? I couldn't believe this was real. Okay, this is the Joe Biden that they allowed to come onto the debate stage. Unbelievable. And, I listened to this so early into the debate. This is like the first 15 minutes. I thought, there's the catastrophic gaffe. It's already over. I mean, truly, the moment I heard Biden's voice, I already said it's over. But that was like, okay, that's the moment everyone's going to talk about. But folks, I promise you this, it gets much, much worse. This is only the beginning. So here's Joe Biden talking about immigration. And once again, he is unintelligible. And even Trump appropriately and kind of hilariously calls that out. Take a listen.
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. It's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
Exactly. What is going on here? Okay. Keep in mind, that's the entire debate. I mean, like, this is the entire, you cannot understand what Joe Biden is saying. Again, him not having his voice, that was certainly not good news for him, especially when there's so many concerns over his health and his age already. He sounded so freaking sleepy. But on top of that, he's also not coherent. He also doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay. And I again promise you, it actually does get worse than this. Oh, and by the way, on the subjects of abortion on January 6th, the things where you would think it's Joe Biden's strong suit, in the end, it wasn't, because this is the Biden we're dealing with. He can't articulate a thought. It's unintelligible what he is saying. And so even at the moments where you might have thought during this debate, hey, maybe Donald Trump has a weakness, Joe Biden not only could not exploit the weakness, he still lost that exchange. He lost every single round because no one could understand what he's saying. Abortion? Well, no one knows what he said about that. January 6th, nobody knows what he said. And then take a look here. This was clearly a pre-prepared line where they're talking about the military, and Joe Biden tries to bring up that old, debunked, never once proven, I shouldn't even use the word debunked, it was never proven to begin with, story about how Trump allegedly called dead veterans at a military cemetery suckers and losers, okay, which is, totally BS. We've been over that. But so Joe Biden tries to deliver this moment as his kind of gotcha. And check it out. He looks so insane as he's saying it, and by the way, is unintelligible, that it's a total failure. It's a total flop. Take a listen here.
You have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example, veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And his group opposed that. We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
President Trump?
So Trump goes on to debunk it. We don't even need to talk about that, okay? Let's just watch Joe Biden again. All right. Now, keep this in mind, too. Let's talk about independent voters. The criticism of Trump, of the moderates, is what? Maybe he has good policies, but he's unhinged, his personality, his demeanor, all that stuff. Well, I also thought Trump did a very good job in this debate, looking like the calmer and more reasonable person, because not only is Joe Biden unintelligible, I mean, just look at his face in this moment. Okay, Joe Biden literally looks like an insane, angry grandpa, or maybe he looks like a meth head. I don't know, whatever way you want to spin it. Let's play that again. Like, he's completely unhinged. Like, check it out.
He's not a loser. He's not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
He's not a loser. You're not a sucker. You're the loser. You're the sucker. So let's keep in mind, this is supposed to be Joe Biden's gotcha soundbite moment against Trump. Not only is it barely intelligible what he said, but Joe Biden, again, Trump is so crazy, all independent voters. Joe Biden literally looks insane as he says it. So just another thing there to keep in mind. Moving on here, we have another moment where now Joe Biden, again, just completely unintelligible this entire time, accuses Trump of defunding the police. I don't even know where that came from. And then fails to pronounce the word malfeasance. And ironically, the most crazy thing about all this, the original question was about inflation. So again, what's going on here? Okay, let's take a listen.
They're going to try again if they win. You find ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity and making sure people have a shot to make it. There's a lot going on, but in inflation, he caused it by his tremendous malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you. Another persistent.
I mean, just listen to Biden. Can it be any more obvious? The guy is struggling. Like, the guy's just struggling to get through this thing. Even on the substance. The questions about inflation, he's talking about defunding the police. Does he know what's going on? I don't know. But the guy did not sound well, okay? And for whatever faults of Donald Trump, maybe you think he could have done better. Maybe you think he has certain political weaknesses. No one is even thinking about that right now. Everyone is just thinking about what happened with Joe Biden. Democrats, you got to imagine, are having a serious conversation about whether or not to replace him. And we'll get into all that later in the video. But we're not even done. All right. And feel free to watch last night's stream if you want the full recap, but I'm just trying to get some of the best moments out here. Towards the end of the debate, Biden's voice is just sounding worse and worse. And he has this moment here where he tries to do, again, kind of a soundbite moment, tries to challenge Trump to a golf game, because basically the context here, they're talking about each other's mental fitness. Trump says, hey, I took a cognitive test. I passed. Could Joe ever pass? Whatever. So Joe Biden tries to do this like funny gotcha moment. And once again, it backfires, it boomerangs, because Biden cannot speak. All right, take a listen.
President Biden.
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what anyway.
We're not even into the main part of this clip. Immediately, what did Biden even say? You're not even 6'4". That's what I heard. I don't know. Did you guys hear something different? Again, this is Joe Biden the entire time last night. We're only picking out a handful of clips. Go watch the full thing. Like, oh my gosh. Okay.
Just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. That he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have, how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay,
Let's not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to turn
Let's not act like children.
to a specific concern.
So again, not only is Joe Biden completely unintelligible there, he tries to make this cool moment and he flops entirely. But even notice the line there at the end that Trump says, let's not act like children. And then Joe Biden says, you are a child. So again, what is the independent voters' criticism of Trump? Too many personal attacks, too much nonsense. A big other takeaway of last night's debate, besides Joe Biden, is the fact that Biden actually seemed like the childish one here. He's trying to do this personal thing, and Trump, maybe, arguably most voters don't see this, tries to be the mature one and says, let's not act like children. So on many levels, not only is Biden unintelligible there, but Trump in many ways looks more mature because Biden is getting desperate. He's losing the debate. He tries to throw out the personal attacks, and ironically, he completely fails. Okay, that said, we're almost done here. Now here is Joe Biden's closing statement, and you can't even make this up. Even his closing statement, his final message to Americans, can't even get it across. Take a listen.
For the ability for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along. It's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have child care.
What is he saying?
Significantly increase the credits people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
I will reiterate, that is Joe Biden's closing statement last night. Cannot get a thought across. He is unintelligible. Folks, I mean, there's nothing else to be said here. Like, that's the debate. That is the debate. Joe Biden was unintelligible, okay? Trump said some things. Who even noticed? Did anyone even really remember what Trump said? No, not really, because that's what Joe Biden was doing, okay? You have to imagine there's a serious conversation now to be had about replacing Joe Biden. And I'm someone who's long been skeptical of that. I'm like, are Democrats really going to do it? There's a lot of reasons maybe not to do it. But now you have to imagine it's a completely serious conversation. They're in full-blown panic mode, and we might talk about that in the next video. But now just focusing on the debate performance and the recap of that here. Okay, when I say it was historically bad, I mean it. That was historically bad. And let me say this. Your kids are going to learn about this in the history books. So if you watched it last night live, you really did witness history, okay? Because I remember being taught as a child about the Nixon-Kennedy debate in 1960 and how, that was very pivotal in history because it was the first TV debate and Nixon was sweating and that's why he lost the election. That pales in comparison to this, okay? I mean, oh my gosh. Like your kids are going to learn either this is the moment Biden lost the election, because I think that's undeniable. Like, there's just no way, no amount of fortification can save your candidate from this. That was historically bad, or you'll remember it as the moment they decided to replace Biden. Either way, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens on that front. But yeah, long story short, the short and end of it is last night at the debate, Joe Biden literally was not sentient, okay? And we'll get in the next video about how even CNN is unable to defend it in the liberal media. My full prediction was, if Joe Biden comes out and he's halfway awake, they're going to say he won the debate. You'll see in the next video, they're not even saying that because no one believes he won. It was that freaking bad. And as of now, if nothing changes, this election is sealed. It's done. Joe Biden, that was horrible, okay? With that said, folks, if you watched last night's debate, let me know your thoughts on all of it in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. And again, I just can't believe that really just happened. But yeah, until next time, Alpha Moves Only, God bless. Have a very great rest of your day, and peace.